Willie Rioli's case is reaching its climax now, Drew. Just walk us through how it's unfolded.
Yeah, a bit to unpack here. So the jury have been deliberating, Gerard, since 7:15, and I think we're getting towards almost half an hour now that they've been discussing this case. So West Coast started by basically trying to downgrade everything. So they're saying, no, it's not medium impact, it's low, because Matty Rowell stayed on the field and was probably best to field for the Gold Coast Suns, didn't even have a concussion test. They also used a still image, Gerard, and I know that you're interested in this. They picked one out that was in the paper and they said, well, actually, there's daylight between Rioli's hip and the head. It's just amazing that they would pick one still image out of that incident, because clearly you can see the head gets thrown back and there's contact there for sure. Anyway, there you go. There's the still. You can see that.
Interject here because a bit of amateur prosecuting, as there's a frustrated prosecutor in all of this. This was the image that they used, daylight between Willie Rioli's hip and Matt Rowell's head. Oh, but could I just use the frame beforehand? Would you mind? I'm pretty sure there's contact there.
Oh, they're clutching. They're clutching.
That's a stretch. I hope they've done better. Drew, on you go.
OK, so that was an attempt by West Coast. They went on to discuss the fact that it was just the ball that Rioli was after, and Rioli actually spoke about this. And there's one thing in particular that Rioli said that I want to point out to you guys. So he said, I wanted to win the footy back and I wanted to help my team at any cost. And I think that this may count against Willie Rioli as the jury deliberate, because the AFL then go on to speak about this case. And I think, as Robbo, you said, they see this as something of a landmark case against Rioli. So I want to read you a couple of things that the AFL rep said. So he notes, this is a difficult matter because it brings to the forefront one of the guiding principles of the tribunal system to prioritise the health and safety of players. Rioli's action in leaping and turning to protect himself does not change the fact the action itself was inherently dangerous to Rowell. It's time players consider the opposing player who is vulnerable and modify behaviour so as to minimise the potential for injury. So as the jury continues to deliberate, it is clear that the AFL's position is they want to protect players who are going for the football and, you know, I guess change behaviours of other players coming into what could be a dangerous situation. Do you agree with this stance, Gerard and Robbo?
So this is really interesting because it's a teaser for the next case. So the Rioli case has zero chance.
No.
Zero chance. But that proposition, I think, will be used in the Robinson case as well. Frankly, that's the problem. It's time players consider the opposing player who is vulnerable and modify behaviour so as to minimise the potential.
But you can't compare the Robinson behaviour action to Rioli action.
But the mantra, I think if we're going, so what is the AFL trying to do here? That's the mantra.
Yeah, it is. When a error and a reckless act is enacted, which, come on. He ran into a charging guy and leapt off the ground and at the last minute turned and hit him. That used to be accepted. Oh, no, you got to make him earn it. That's crap. It is absolute crap. I'm really surprised that West Coast have actually appealed it, and the tribunal should say, you're wasting our time, take two. Seriously. Where are we going when people or the club can think, we can defend this? We've got a chance of getting him off. We can't be getting him off, Gerard. If he gets off, that would be one of the worst decisions we've seen this year.
It would be. It would be cataclysmic for the system. This is breaking news, Robbo.
What is the breaking news, Gerard?
Willie Rioli's had his suspension overturned. He has been found not guilty.
He's off.
Pack it up. Pack it up, boys.
He did say. Pretty well
all yours.
Issues for the teams.
I just wanted the earpiece, you're right.
What else we got? I'll take your little... Whateley gets his own.
Get our books and our phones.
He's got... Seriously.
I can't be seriously
impressed with that. Jack, what's your immediate reaction?
Hang on. I just want to get the detail here from Drew Jones first. Drew, welcome.
Really?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the right words for the reaction upstairs. Flummoxed is probably a good place to start. But this felt like a landmark case for the AFL, and it felt like it was going down the way of a one-game suspension for Willie Rioli, but that's not been the case. So David Zeta's been following it really closely for us, and he's just sent me the exact quotes here from the AFL. So the tribunal is not satisfied the player engaged in rough conduct. Incidents such as this, where the question revolves around whether how the player is contesting the ball, are not easy. The tribunal will be astute to uphold any charge where a player was initially intending to contest the ball, but he changed that intention in doing so, breaching his duty of care. In this case, it's not that case. So Willie Rioli had eyes for the ball as he entered the contest. There is no doubt he braced for contact a split second before, but when doing so, he did not cease to contest the ball. The way in which he did so was not unreasonable. So, in the end, after 40 minutes of deliberation, the jury have found Willie Rioli not guilty of engaging in rough conduct with Matt Rowell. They did concede the contact was high, but they said Willie Rioli had eyes for the ball and he contested the ball correctly in that case. I mean, we're amazed by this result and it's still all sinking in. It has been a dramatic night so far, boys, that's for sure.
Mitch Robinson has to get off.
Well, he does. I agree with that.
He has to get off. And this AFL rep, Gerard, that which you were waving around before, frankly, Jack, it's time players consider the opposing player who is vulnerable and modify behaviour as to minimise the potential for injury. That's laughable. That is laughable after that.
So would you have thought that that was an unreasonable action in what you've been experiencing in recent years?
Oh, I just think the jumping off the ground. I know that he's gone to protect himself probably and in caught Rowell high. I did the pub test walking down and sort of sussed a few people out up the top here. I thought it was a week, but clearly it's not. It's a dangerous precedent to be setting in round one.
It's a fascinating
Sorry, I shouldn't say dangerous. It's an interesting precedent to be setting
because
in round
it says that that's now reasonable. And I think we'd all been conditioned
To think that that's
to
unreasonable.
know that it was unreasonable.
Zach, what's your gut feel? Don't make headlines first night, but if you want to,
I can.
you can.
No, I think just the priority should always be to protect the guy going for the footy, and I think that's a pretty dangerous action. And yeah, I think my understanding at the moment would be that that would be a week, but yeah, it is a big call, and I'm sure that will set a precedent moving forward.
So if that's considered a reasonable action, do we now have to look at Rowell's action in terms of running back with the flight? Because
Well, running with the flight of the ball.
this memo here, it says you've got to adjust behaviour. Has that behaviour now got to be adjusted where players can't feel safe running back with the flight to get the ball, which you think about some of the great marks we've seen in AFL football. They've been running back with the flight. Jonathan Brown. Rui. Like, is that the behaviour that now has to be adjusted?
I think the AFL better have a press conference tomorrow, Gerard.
I think they'll be shocked.
I think they should have a press conference, I'm being serious here, and announce that they're appealing that decision.
Right.
I'm not going after Willie Rioli. Right? I think it's a fantastic story that Willie is back playing football. That was 20 years ago. That was. Oh, no, you can do that. No, you can't. You just can't, Jack. You wouldn't.
I think that's the important point. Is you got to take the person out of the action, and there's no way Willie Rioli's jumped up to bump Matt Rowell on the head on purpose like that. It's an action that has maybe it is an old school action that players have grown up doing that needs to be adjusted due to the betterment of the game. Is the same as the swearing at the umpires. Like, we adjust rules in the game, one to make the game better, but also predominantly for player safety.